Kevin, why are you special?
That is the toughest question I've ever heard in my life. I guess I'm special because people who don't know me, when they get to know me, I think they appreciate that I'm authentic. And if they give me an opportunity and they don't make judgments in the beginning, they don't mistake passion for someone that is a bull in a china shop, then they give me a fair shot, then we become friends for life.
I mean, the audience is going to find you're special. I mean, you're a Marine, so hey, you got that going for you. All the Marines are going to think you're special.
Wait, you said the word Marine and you didn't bark.
I didn't say hoorah.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, come on.
No, it's nice to have that audience if you know there's Marines out there. If a Marine doesn't tell you in 10 seconds he's a Marine or she's a Marine, then they're probably not a Marine.
Probably not Marine.
I'm Herb Thompson, a Green Beret and resolutionist.
And I'm Corey Thompson, Herb's less hairy half and branding expert.
Our guests come from various backgrounds, but one thing is true. They are special.
You are a nonprofit founder. I mean, you are a force of good in the veteran community, just a real good dude. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
And you're Laura's husband.
I mean, that's my favorite title.
You got that going for. Oh, I'm going to ask way off script. Marine, founder, veteran, husband, dad.
Yeah.
Which one goes first?
Dad.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I figured you're going to say that.
You know, one of the things that I say, tying back to the Marine, those titles, it's not or, right? It's and. But one of the most special things, and I get choked up a lot of times when I say this, I'll start a talk with someone and I'll say, I'm the son of a Marine. I'm a Marine myself. And I'm a father of a Marine. And when I get to that last part, I cry like a baby. And the story is really interesting because when I was commissioned a second lieutenant, graduated from the College of the Holy Cross, my dad was reading my oath. And the presiding officer was then Major Joe Dunford, who became our commandant and became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So like the first Marine I ever interacted with. My dad's reading the oath and he got to like the third sentence, right? Say your full name, right? And he completely broke down and cried. And actually Major Dunford administered my oath. Fast forward to 2014. This is 1989 to 2014. So what is that?
A lot.
25 years. 25 years. I'm in Paris Island. My son's graduating from boot camp at the age of 18. I'm sitting in the audience, retired lieutenant colonel, and they administered the oath to the entire group of Marines graduating. I mean, I was crying like a baby. There's a picture of me hugging him. My face is all ruddy and red.
You can make Marines cry. That's how you do it.
As I get older, I cry all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great segue though. Following your dad, is that what led to you joining the Marine Corps and serving?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will think that's the only reason. It certainly was a big reason. My dad never wanted me to be a Marine, and I never really wanted my son to be a Marine. I think selfishly, right? We know what it's like to serve. We worry about our kids. So he never pushed me, but my dad would talk to these friends of his who were Marines that he served with. And he was a completely different person. I'd see him on the phone or we would go out with a friend and you could see this like heart come out of him. And I never had seen that side of my dad. So I never said anything to him, but I think it had a big impression on me. It was also out of necessity. You know, I had 5 brothers and sisters, big Catholic family. And my dad couldn't afford to pay for me to go to college. I mean, he had to balance those things. So I got a full scholarship. The Marine Corps paid for it and it made a big difference. But the last thing I'll say is my mom had a big influence on my decision to serve. Not in the military, very, very devout Catholic, went to church every day. And we did things in the community. And she taught me the value of service just as much as my dad. And I'm very careful not to include that because I think it's easy to say my dad was a Marine and that's why I'm a Marine. I never encouraged Carl to be a Marine. I had 3 sons in my first marriage, Luke, Carl, and Jack. I'm going to see them tonight. Oh. And one of them inevitably would see what the Marine Corps did for me and how much service meant to me. And despite me not wanting him to do that, he came to me 3 months before his 18th birthday and said, Dad, I want to be a Marine. I need you to come to the recruiter's office. I said, no, you don't. I'm not coming. Really? He said, well, in 3 months, I'm going to go on my own. So I went with him.
So you had signed for him when he was 17?
I went with him to the recruiter's office and he signed the contract with me there. I also knew the head of
Yeah.
that region who was in charge of recruiting. So he got the MOS he wanted. He got the timing he wanted because I was best friends or went to
Yeah.
college with the senior person in that region.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, in this environment, if your son or daughter decides to serve, you want them to be informed, just like we would,
Yeah.
right? If someone came to you for advice about what they should do in the Army, or if they wanted to know if you think they could be a Green Beret, you would give them honest advice. Well, we should be doing that for our own kids.
I agree. And we've talked with our kids, and none of them are serving or have any plans to. But it's interesting how so many military families that one of the kids at least usually ends up serving and following because they see it, right? You live it and you talk. We'll get into it with your mom and stuff as we go forward. But what was your military service like?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would serve more than 4 years. I thought I was paying back a debt that I owed because they gave me an opportunity to go to college for free. I just fell in love with being a Marine and leading Marines. And I had a very unusual career. I would describe it in 3 parts. Like operationally, I was an artillery officer.
But a Marine's a Marine.
A Marine is a Marine, always a Marine, a rifleman first. But I think for me, the opportunities the Marine Corps gave me later on in my career really set me up for success in who I am more than being a combat artilleryman and a Marine and a rifleman and things that Marines are proud of. That I think this common thread that Marines all learn how to be an infantryman first. The Marine Corps invests 6 months for every officer to go through basic infantry course. So it's called the basic school. But the latter part of my career, I kind of, during the slow time, I got to get a degree in human resources management. I wound up being, as part of the second part of my career, the number 2 thing I did was to become an expert in manpower and reserve affairs, like recruiting, assigning, retaining Marines, and how that applies to the force. That's because they sent me to get another degree at the Naval Postgraduate School. And then I had a very unique experience serving for a very high level 4-star general. I was an aide.
You were an aide, and that, can you hit on that? Because that is not something most people know about. And I see a lot of value to that, not just what you're doing now, but like to your life after the military.
Yeah.
What was it like being the aide? You're everywhere with 4-star general.
Yeah.
Every day.
Think about every lesson in leadership you could ever think of, and being in the room when decisions are made at a very high level and having the trust and confidence of someone who believes in you. I actually have thought about writing a book. We had a conversation. I'm not into just writing a book, but at that time in my life, I don't know, 36 years old. I'm stationed overseas in Europe. I traveled 286 days a year with General Jones in his role as the NATO commander in U.S. European Command. Yeah, so that was a deployment in itself, right? You think about it, we were responsible for all of Europe, all of Africa, because U.S. European Command had Africa, 2/3 of the Earth's water mass. And at the time, NATO was taking over a training mission in Iraq. So I traveled to every country in Europe, half the countries in Africa, and all over these other places that we had to go. But the book would be about managing principles, but the actual leadership lessons I learned. And really the name of the book could be Casting Your Own Shadows, because you have this opportunity to walk in the shadows of giants, right? General Jones was 6'5", so literally and figuratively, right? And you're learning, and you're there in the room, and then one day you have the opportunity to start nonprofits, start your own things, be an entrepreneur, run a business, and you learn how to be a CEO. So then you cast your own shadows. And that's not saying that I'm a giant. It's just saying they get you to believe in it. So the book is about getting people in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even early 40s to say, you know what, I'm going to get a cup of coffee for this guy. I'm going to hold his bag. I'm going to be in rooms with people that matter, and I'm going to learn. And I'm going to take that step back, even though I think I can aspire to bigger things, because taking a step back will help you get to the next level and take 2 steps forward. And it wasn't, I never felt like I was doing demeaning work. I always felt like I was relevant, because he didn't treat me like an aide. he treated me like a chief of staff. So that would be the role. Like being a chief of staff for a high level person is the most incredible thing you can
learn so
do.
much because you see everything,
Yeah.
touch everything.
Yeah.
And it gave you so many opportunities to network and to learn, who's who and what other things you could put together strategically, right?
Right. And also something I'm not good at is when to listen. I think we were talking about it earlier. I love to help people and to share my perspectives in order to help add something to something that someone's trying to do. But good leaders actually are better listeners. And
Laura, your wife, I can hear my phone buzzing. I think she just called in and texted, "Yeah, he doesn't listen well."
No, and it is a problem. And I think she'll be also happy to see I don't have my phone, because that's probably the biggest culprit for me not listening. I need to do better. Like that's a great example.
Sure.
There are times recently, because we've been really busy, and you've seen it too with each other, where Laura will say something, and literally 10 minutes after she say it, I'll say, "Oh, we need to do this."
That doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen. Or it happens every day. She's like, "I just told you that." I was like, "No, you didn't."
Why didn't you tell me that? I did.
Yeah. And I'm saying it publicly. I need to do better. So if she's listening, anyone else is listening, like this idea of being where your feet are and being present. We're busy people, and we love together being busy, and we support each other in that. But when you're in the moment, to be present, I'm going to put my phone down this weekend. We've been away from each other, and I'm going to put my phone down. I'm not going to pick it up.
We're going to check in with Laura and see if
I love that though, because it's so easy in today's day and age to not be where your feet are, to like here, or I need to worry about my company. I need to worry about this project, or even as a parent, I need to worry about my kids or whatever. Sometimes you need to just go. Boom.
Absolutely.
I'm telling this to myself, so it's recorded and
saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Saying it out loud.
Trying to manifest it into my life. But for everybody out there, just subscribe, hit the little button down there, hear more great stuff. But you come to the end of your military career, you're saying, okay, time to move on from the Marine Corps, but you still wanted to serve.
The reality is my time with General Jones wasn't ended after NATO. There was a very unique opportunity. So I went from there, moved back to the States, and I was in charge of the enlisted assignments monitors. So the 60 human resources specialists, the top Marines in their field that assign 172,000 Marines worldwide. And one day I was sitting at my desk leading those men and women in a really hard time, 2006, 2007, time of war. Every Marine would deploy twice in their first term. And that was like modeled, but really changing the culture, taking care of people. I'm at my desk, and General Jones called me, and he said, "Hey, I have to ask you a question." He said, "What do you know about the Middle East?" I said, "Well, I know nothing." He said, "Well, I'd like you to spend a year in Israel working on the peace process." He had just been named as a special envoy for President Bush. And I'm like, "Sir, I'm not the right guy. Like, I know nothing about, Israel, Palestine." He's like, "Well, that's why you're the right guy, because you have no bias." And I'm like, the boys are young. But I also felt like I owed it. You know what I mean, Herb? Like, I went to Iraq with General Jones for 3 weeks here, and went to Afghanistan, but I didn't serve like Paul, my business partner. I didn't give my time. So, and it wasn't the same, but I did go away from my family for all of 2008. I'm sharing all that because, with challenge comes opportunity. And it was another like stepping out for me. I wore plain clothes. I was going to every country around Israel and Palestine. I went inside the West Bank.
I'm smiling because you probably still stuck out like a Marine would.
Oh, I did. Like short hair, it didn't matter anyway. Yeah, everyone knew a mile away, and I'm sure there were people in Israel that knew exactly who I was.
They weren't like, "Hey,
too.
that guy definitely fits in."
Everyone knew why I was there.
Yeah.
He's selling computers. That's it. Software salesman.
But I got out, and General Jones, I'm walking down the hallway with him, October of that year, and we were reporting out to Condoleezza Rice, Secretary Rice. And he's like, "Oh, so where are you going next?" I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere, sir. I'm retiring." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, this is it." My oldest had turned 14. He was starting high school. He had done 6 moves in 11 years. And I'm like, "You know what? That's enough." He's like, "Okay." The very next day, he introduced me to Tom Donahue, the president and CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. A 90-minute conversation turned into an offer for a job. So I never even
Wow.
put my resume out.
That is really unique.
Yeah.
I'm just, I didn't know that. Like your last time, it's so tough when it's overseas like that to like make the transition to be a civilian and coming back home. And then for that to happen, man, that's just, hey, you had to seize the opportunity. Like some people could say luck, but that is.
Yeah. I also think there's something magical about that year, at least there was for us, of that realization of like when your kids hit high school, you're like, holy crap, I've almost missed it all.
Yeah.
And you just like have this, like, we got to reset. We got to do something now.
Reset, not regret.
Yeah.
Like how do you get it to the right point? And General Jones was incredible in making that introduction. Of course, a week later, he got asked to go to the White House and as the national security advisor a few weeks later when President Obama won the election. And then he asked me if I'd go there instead. But I had already made my decision. I was Tom Donahue's chief of staff for 2 years. So literally, this is a true story. One day I'm walking down the hallways of the State Department with General Jones and Secretary Rice in my service alphas. The next day I'm walking around the halls of the chamber in a suit with Tom Donahue. So it was literally still the short haircut, so everyone knew I was a Marine. But we traveled around the country, around the world, met with CEOs, world leaders. I went to Davos, the World Economic Forum, China, India, Brazil, Colombia. So of the 40 countries I didn't see with General Jones, the 50 I saw with him, 90 countries all told in like a 7-year span. It wound up setting me up for success. So when you do a job, to my point about writing a book about being a chief of staff, when you do a job like that, the senior leader who you work for says, what do you want to do next? Tom asked me that question, and I saw this incredible opportunity to serve again, because when I was the head of enlisted assignments and I talked to young Marines about re-enlisting, that was part of our job. We'd go around the world. It's called the Road Show. I would do quick exit interviews with young Marines. And inevitably, when I asked them what they were going to do next, they would say, sir, I have no idea. I'm just going to go home and I'll figure it out. So plant that seed. Go around the country with Tom Donahue. I meet with Fortune 500 CEOs. They say they want to hire veterans. We love veterans. At the time in 2011, when Tom asked me that question at the beginning of the year, veteran unemployment was at 10% nationally. For veterans under the age of 24, it was 30%. We had 1 million unemployed veterans in America, 1 million. So here are these two things that intersect. CEOs of companies are saying they want to hire. I say, okay, well, put your money where your mouth is. The chamber didn't believe in the idea. They thought it was government work, like the Department of Labor, the VA, DOD. That's not our job as the business community. And I fundamentally disagreed. The solving of the problem of veteran unemployment rests with corporate America. Yeah. And that's what we did. So he gave me that opportunity and
this has probably been said a lot by now, but this was our first disagreement. He's come full circle now.
This was our first disagreement. I was like, no, it's on the government. They need all these places.
No, it's on corporate America. So props for you.
Thank you.
I mean, but you founded Hiring Our Heroes. I mean, I don't even know how many thousands at this point.
It's over 1 million, I think.
Yeah, probably. It impacted. I mean, that is just incredible to think. You started it and so many people are part of it, and then more people following on after you.
Like, hey, do you want to know the best part of it? That's where I met Laura.
Oh.
So not only did you help 1 million veterans and their families, so now make that a big number, you got the most important one.
It was a real unique journey because at the beginning, the chamber really wasn't bought in. In fact, I wasn't really permitted to raise money. What I did is I went around the country, and locally I would get a hotel to give an in-kind venue. I would organize employers. I would tend to get a state or local chamber and some of the larger VSOs and nonprofits that were interested in the work that we were doing to partner. And then one city at a time by myself and a part-time employee, I went from city to city for 5 months, and they did 12 events. And I had announced in March, when we did the event in Chicago, March 24th. So it was just a couple days ago, 15-year anniversary. I would get these opportunities and I'd be very successful. So I'd get a couple thousand to pay for the food. And I wasn't allowed to ask for like a sponsorship of the whole program, like support of the whole program. And then we had some breakthroughs. Like I was in New York City working with Veterans on Wall Street, another organization that supported veterans in New York. They had a networking event on the USS Intrepid. They said, hey, why don't you come to a hiring fair there? It was like number 10. Every network covered it. I was on national news. You could see me rocking in front of the Intrepid. It wasn't the boat was rocking. I was so nervous. I was rocking back on my feet. But people started to hear about it and being on the news and building a brand.
Right.
A month later, I was at Sony Studios in Los Angeles. Prince William and Kate came to the event. We were covered by 100 different networks worldwide.
Wow.
1 billion viewers, 200 employers, 2,000 veterans. I mean, I got to meet Prince William and Kate, right? But a philanthropist saw it, called me out to Minneapolis. Secretary Jim Nicholson, who was close friends with Tom Donahue, knew the West Point graduate, Lee Anderson, who was there. I wasn't raising money. I had a deck. At the end of the meeting, he said, you look tired. You're never going to get to 100 hiring fairs if you don't have a team. I'm going to give you $3 million. And my mouth went.
You're like, thank you. Also, thank you.
So you didn't even ask. He just,
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the great part. I went back and told Tom, and then everyone believed.
yeah, because at that point now
Yeah.
they have to.
Right. So here's the most special part. So for the 5 months, 25 of the biggest employers in America were getting all this for free.
Mm-hmm.
They came to the first 12 events. They were on TV with me. And what was really special about that, right, is NBC had agreed to cover all of our hiring fairs going forward. So we had the brand guarantee. So I sent a letter the day after Tom said it was okay to fundraise. Sent a letter to 25 companies. 14 came back and committed $100,000 or $250,000. And we raised $1.8 million in 9 days
Wow.
in the wake of that. And then we just took off. Companies wanted to be a part of it. And at the beginning, they wanted to be a part of Hiring Our Heroes because it was the right thing to do. And then they hired veterans and they saw it was right for their business.
So the value beside the charity.
Right. The ROI of hiring someone. And that's why veteran unemployment is at 3%. That's why veteran unemployment for the last 13 years, really since 2013, 2014, has been lower than civilian unemployment. Most people don't know that because we still talk about it like it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's not as big a problem. I think we need to do better.
I think veteran retention is still a major problem.
Yes, right. How do companies go beyond military friendly? Hiring Our Heroes was a military friendly movement. It's a brand. Companies still love that brand and they're still committed to it. And I'm very proud of that.
As you should be.
Yeah. But I think we need to go beyond that, to your point.
Yeah.
It has to be more about it. Retention, full employment, purpose, giving veterans what they need and spouses what they need to thrive in the workplace, but also to thrive outside of the
And
workplace.
also ensuring that they have been put into the right location in their role, that they, feel valued and supported, because oftentimes there's a disconnect from those that have placed people in roles to really understand the value that those veterans
I
bring.
love that. And I think we need to do a better job ourselves as individuals. I think oftentimes in transition out of uniform, we're entitling young people and we're saying, you need to get a job. We pigeonhole them into these ideas or use your GI Bill to get a 4-year degree. And we're not, and get our benefits. Like these are fundamental things that happen in transition. We were talking about it yesterday at an event we did that Herb participated in and led and launched with us. I think there's this incredible question we should ask ourselves, is all that worth it? Like, why are we cramming 5 days of really poor content to a non-captive audience, a young person who really is not listening?
Doesn't give a
No, they just want to be.
care.
They're told it's mandatory to be there,
Yeah.
and they're doing it. And really, we need a half a day with them, and we should say, what brings you joy?
Mm-hmm.
What are you really good at?
Yeah.
How do you want to make money or make a difference and give back to your community? These are the 3 questions we should ask, and then we should say, this is what you have in the military. Like, this is what you were given.
Yeah.
And it was a gift to you. And you were thriving because you had meaningful employment, because you had a sense of purpose through service, because you were part of a connected community and a tribe, because you took care of your health physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And because the military, despite what anyone may think, actually allows us to constantly seek self-improvement through education, training, certification, being a mentor, being a mentee, the kit bag, we call it, right? And listen, no matter what people say, jumping out of an airplane is putting something in your kit bag because you're overcoming fear. Going to graduate school, going to mountain warfare school, like these are things that make us strong and courageous and resilient. Whether or not we think about it that way,
Yeah. But
we're getting that. And those 5 things, why are we not demanding that when we leave of ourselves and of our employers and of the communities where we live, work, and serve?
Absolutely.
It definitely. To hear speakers like Kevin, other great engaging speakers, check us out, www.libertyspeaks.com. I might have put an extra W in there.
That was counting.
So
I like
3
W's.
W's.
We all like a win.
We
right?
only have 3 for those
Check
that were
us out,
counting.
libertyspeaks.com, get an engaging speaker for an event. But you were doing well at the Chamber of Commerce doing that. And then it how did you get to this purpose, join that? Because from talk with you, I know you went through a down period.
Yeah.
So what happened when you were at that height of, everything's great, raising all this money, doing all this good, traveling everywhere, and then?
So in 2013, probably around May or June, I'd been there doing that work about 2.5 years. And I had been working about 80 or 90 hours a week. I was deployed again, 180 days on the road. Out of the 500 hiring events that we did in the first 2 years, I was at half of them. I'd seen all 50 states. And I was just run down. Like I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And the chamber was really helpful. They wanted me to stay. They were very gracious in offering me a lot of perks and benefits that would take some of the burden off of me. But at that point, it was too late. My first marriage had suffered, my kids had suffered, and I had suffered. And even though I didn't think about it that way. And listen, when a 23-year-old sergeant comes up to you and says, "Sir, you changed my life today. I got a job," you can quickly become addicted to making change and making a difference in someone's life. So I saw the writing on the wall. I left. I remember how hard it was, but I left, and it was the worst thing I ever did because I didn't save my first marriage, and I was miserable. I lost my purpose. I lost my community. Like all these people who I knew that were amazing leaders that helped me create this change and who I loved. Like you love the people you work with. You love the advisors and the people that are part of this movement. And I really didn't take care of my health. So I started drinking too much. I wasn't getting sleep. And the spiral was real. The chamber was great.
Did you isolate? Like kind of
Oh, yeah.
just not talk to many people?
I wasn't the same person. I didn't want people to see me that way. But I got some treatment, not the right treatment. The chamber welcomed me back. They were an incredible employer. And they gave me a job. I was responsible for development. I was the vice president of development for companies that have about $500 million to $5 billion of revenue. And I was really good at it. I'm good at getting people to believe in something. I knew everything about the chamber because I was with Tom Donahue. I was part of the foundation, and Hiring Our Heroes was part of the chamber's foundation. So I was very effective at that. And I raised a lot of money, and I was getting paid a lot of money, and I was only working half the time. And I've never been more miserable in my life. So I really spiraled. It was a 4-year, 3.5 year decline.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah, please.
I think so many often, because I've been there, I've been in some dark places. People think it's this, but it is that oftentimes that slow spiral.
There are a lot of contributing factors like getting divorced, feeling guilty about that. I was more alone and isolated. I lived in an apartment in Shirlington, and it was a tough time. I tell this story to some people how I got out of it, but it wasn't like it was a snap of a finger. So I'm sitting at my desk at the chamber in April of 2016. I was invited to a Washington Capitals game. Bonnie Carroll at the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors invited me. And they have a VIP event every year. And they have these caps. They give out these caps at the game. It says courage on it. And I mean, I was in a bad way. They give me the cap. I put it on. I'm wearing a suit and a cap. I just come from the chamber. And I'm just standing in the back of the room. I was probably drinking something, probably a bourbon and ginger ale or something like that.
Yeah, not water.
Not water, for sure. And a Vietnam veteran who had served with General Jones named Buzz Hefty saw me in the back of the room. And he came up to me and said, what's wrong? What's bothering you? So I shared what was going on, and he could clearly see it. I didn't have to tell him much. And he said, well, that's easy. Just go back to nonprofit work. Just like that, right? So the next day, true story, I go back to the chamber. I'm sitting at my lonely desk. minding my own business, making calls, working with the members that I had brought in. And in the corner of my desk is the Courage cap, just sitting there, red with blue writing and Courage, capitals, gray and black and white, camouflage brim. And Korn Ferry called me, the search firm, executive search firm, and they were looking for a new CEO of a nonprofit. This is within 24 hours.
Wow.
If that's not a message from above.
Divine intervention.
Right. And I went in for an interview. A week later, I got the offer to be the CEO of a scholarship foundation for military families. Very small, day to day, month to month. Like I'm making payroll. I tripled it in size in a year and a half, but I still was like not completely fulfilled. I started running marathons, ran a marathon on my 50th birthday, the Marine Corps Marathon. The previous time was 17 years earlier. And then it was slowly and gradually, like I found my purpose again. I was taking care of my health. I was part of a connected community because I was a nonprofit leader and all these people were coming back saying, okay, he's okay. He's getting out of this. We can see the same Kevin.
Did anyone at that time say like, I can tell a difference, or I'm glad to see you're doing better? And did it ever make you wonder, like, why didn't anyone intervene?
Well, no, they couldn't. Like the only person that could help were the people closest to me, Laura, Paul, my business partner, and myself. My family, my siblings, my parents, but they didn't know what to do. I got the right treatment. Let's not discount.
Sure.
Like it took that long to get the right treatment. This is everyone's
that worked
different.
For you.
That worked for me.
Yeah.
And that's why people are trying to figure that out. But I want to be really crystal clear. That's getting the right treatment is only one part of it. I found my purpose. I was connected again. Yeah. I took care of my health. I was constantly seeking self-improvement and I had meaningful employment. And now I know those are the 5 things I need. Now, do I know the signs when I'm overworked? Yes. Do I know when I'm not sleeping? Do I know when I'm drinking too much? Do I know when I'm not taking care? Absolutely. We all know that.
Yeah.
And then I have a partner like you both have
I was
with each
going to
other
ask Laura
all the time.
I'm assuming a huge
like she
part.
was my caregiver. Like we never used that term publicly.
Yeah.
She was my caregiver. Like make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
She literally was part of my life and saved my life. There's no, I'm not pulling any punches because it's true. And I never talk about that. And she didn't expect me to.
Sure.
But she knows now. She sees the signs and I need that in someone. So she saw me come through it and was with me every step of the way. But there were other people that we have in our networks that would have been there too. It's just that I felt comfortable. Absolutely. And then I went to another nonprofit and it just got better and better because it was a much bigger nonprofit and I was making much more of an impact and I was filling my cup. So all I can say is that's the why we do the work that we do. The work that I do now is not like only focused on the good side of things. Yeah. It's actually born out of weakness and struggle. And I really believe that the work that we do is focused on improving the trajectory. So when people hit that struggle, which they will, I mean, I will again, you will again, we all will. Yeah. But when you hit it, knowing the signs and knowing that you have to find those things and taking it on yourself to say, okay, I have to find those 5 things again, because we're all human beings and we're all going to falter. We're all going to fail. We're all going to struggle. And that's okay.
And accepting that pivot isn't necessarily a failure. And not to plug this book, because I think I recommend it, probably over-recommend it, but I love this component of it. The Design Your Life book talks about how as a society for so many years, we had this expectation that you pick one career and that's it for life. And so then we feel this guilt and shame if we feel there's a need to pivot. But I think there's so much power in releasing that expectation of ourselves and accepting that, like, maybe it worked for you for a few years, but maybe now it's time to move on to something else. Yeah. And maybe it's time to reinvent that.
Well, and maybe we're wired that way. Yeah. I mean, I think we have a responsibility to talk to veterans, military spouses about the opportunity to reinvent yourself, transform yourself. We transformed ourselves as Marines and soldiers and sailors and airmen. We have to think about that. I've had 7 jobs since I left the Marine Corps, and I had 7 jobs or 7 duty stations in the Marine Corps. And every 3 years, right? You get that itchiness like, oh, maybe I should try something new. Maybe that's a good thing. And the difference is now with Zero Mills and who I am as a person at 58, I can control that. So I have a company, it's my own company. It's focused on doing well and doing good. And I know exactly where I sit because I asked myself these 3 questions. What brings me joy? What am I good at? And what does my community need from me? And
You're designing your life.
I created the perfect Venn diagram.
Yeah.
And I control that and I can evolve it to do other things that aren't filling my cup. So if I'm lacking a little bit of purpose or connection, or I'm not taking care of my health, I can tweak it. We're chemistry projects. Like we're literally all wired differently. So some of us over-index more than others. And I think I need to do something different every 3 years. And maybe the military is responsible for that, but it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing.
I'm thinking about it because even I'm just thought of this now, like even as a kid, it was always the next sports season. Like I was transforming from different things. I'm assuming you were in sports and athlete. And then you go to college and it's always, yes, you're in the same college if you went that way, but like that's transforming year to year. And then the military, and like for you, you moved all over North Carolina as a pastor kid. So there was always this change. And then you get in the military and they come out, and there is that misconception, I think, of like, oh, you do this and you do it forever.
Yeah. And our good friend Chantel, Dr. Chantel Pratt, talks about, neuroscience and the difference of brains, but she's also captured it really well in that everything that we experience is shaping our brain, and our brain then develops this way, and wants to continue to grow. And it is so much of what we've experienced in the past, that is responsible for that. So I think it's really fascinating.
And for me, I will tell you something I'm still working on, but put a lot of work in the last couple of years is not chasing something. Not like in the military, we chased the next assignment, the next whatever.
The next promotion.
Yeah. Like this school. And then it was afterwards, I was doing the same thing. And I was like, how is it okay? How can I be okay just being okay?
I kept saying, you're going on a 8-mile, not, a non-trail hike every day mentally. There's no trail. You're forging this trail 8 miles straight up a mountain every day. But then when you get to the top, you immediately start looking around going, what mountain am I climbing tomorrow? And then you run back down. You're not stopping and looking around at the scenery that you busted your butt to get to that day and soaking it in and being present in it. You're immediately shifting to what tomorrow's hike is going to be like.
I could have used this a lot earlier. That's incredible advice. I was in an interview once and someone said, so how do you celebrate a win? And I said, celebrate a win? I celebrate a win by using that win to get another win. Yeah. And it's not always healthy.
Right.
It's the same thing when I used the Marine sergeant analogy, and this young kid who came up to me in Chicago and said, I changed his life. You want to change another life and another life and another life. And I think at the end of the day, where I am now is I want to influence one life at a time and really soak it in. And spend more time with that person, really invest in them and have them invest in back. It could be mentor, mentee, mentee, mentor. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, when we get to finally say goodbye to this earth and go on to something bigger, because I believe in that, who's going to be at the service? Is it going to be the 1 million people that got a job through hiring our heroes? It isn't. It's going to be Laura and Paul. Hopefully you guys will come. And it'll be people that we work with one-on-one and we build a relationship with, and that they see us for who we are because they gave us a chance to be ourselves. And
they celebrated your wins quietly, whether you knew it or not.
Right. And listen, I'll never forget that doing something big made a big difference. But your legacy is left in the people that you spend your most time with. And I spent a fraction of a blip, a tiny fraction of a minute of time when you spread it out across all these people by doing something that had a big vision and executing it. And I think the right way of thinking about our country going forward and what we need is we need to invest in young people and spend time with them and share what we're doing in a way where we're influencing them to carry the torch of service and carry the torch of what makes this country special. And we all have that responsibility. And I think I'm seeing that more and more. So even the work that I'm doing with Zero Mills now, which has a very specific mission, I still have a thirst and a hunger to help young people see the value of service that's not about serving in the military.
Absolutely.
Healthcare,
Yeah.
teachers, first responders, like our
Yeah.
country is
It does take a uniform to serve.
right.
Yeah.
You don't need a badge or some fancy title to serve
Yeah.
and do good in
And
your
everyone wants
community.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one common bond that every American shares. It's the one thing that will bridge divides. It's the one thing that
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what your religion or politics is. When I see people come to serve together for whatever, a food bank, a care package event, cleaning up a park, they're lining up to go inside or go outside.
Yeah.
And if you look at the line, you'll see every type of American, every walk of life you can think of. And that in the course of this service project, they start understanding that they actually share a lot more in common than what makes them different. It's a really incredible experience.
Yeah.
And I want to devote more of my time to that.
It is one of our, going off on a tangent, one of our favorite places to go is this Amish food market. And it's in a very urban area. So you see an interesting group of people there and everyone gets along and everyone is like, yeah, and getting their food and getting their products. And it's just so cool because we are more alike and together. Corey and I talk about all the time. It's just like, it's like a very microcosm of that in the projects you're talking about that we
And it's
see in
one
the
of
market.
our core values as a company for our brand is to, and that was what we hope to do with this podcast, was to show that we're more alike than what people think, and that division and unity is manufactured, and that if you take a step back, you can see it anywhere. You can see it at the market. You can see it serving.
Yeah.
You can see it on this podcast. You know, it's there. We just have to look for that.
Yeah. Look for it and draw it out.
Yeah.
I think there's so many stories I could share about it, but maybe another time and place.
Yeah, no, but I want to hit on Zero Mills. What is the mission of Zero Mills? What are you doing now?
I mean, I think the bigger question as we got to that, because it took a while, is when I was at this third nonprofit, a lot of what I wanted to do, the board didn't want to do anymore. And I was okay with that because I really saw this opportunity with service and bridging divides. But at the same time, I saw a problem in our community. And I go back to these three questions. What brings me joy? What am I good at? And what does my community need from me? And I think over time, I've been really good at that third part. And because of inherently serving gives me joy, and I know what I'm good at as a nonprofit leader, I saw something that our community fundamentally needed, and that is addressing the broken veteran narrative. It is endemic. And it's not surprising. Like we fought in war for 20 years, and there was this proliferation of nonprofits, a sea of goodwill, 40,000 people standing up saying, I want to serve and help veterans and their families, service members and their families, military spouses and their families. And those nonprofits started to elicit sympathy and pity for challenges and struggles and trials, right? Instead of the opportunities and the strengths and the triumphs. So listen, I struggle myself. So there's no better person in this country to stand up and say enough is enough. Yeah, we have people who are broken, but a vast majority of us are thriving. So we saw this problem and we said, you know what? We're going to create a company that tries to get organizations and communities to step up and go beyond military friendly. Instead of doing something ordinary, like hiring people, helping solve a problem, helping veterans, we've created a movement. We're creating a movement where organizations do something extraordinary. And that's creating environments where veterans, military spouses, and their families are seen and heard the way we should be seen and heard, because we are thriving. And the military, we are thriving because of our service, not in spite of it. And I'm not saying it has to be balance. We have to swing the pendulum back, and not so far where we're not letting our brothers and sisters who are struggling not get the things that they need. We have a responsibility because young people aren't going to serve. Even our sons and daughters, like Carl may not have served if he saw this.
Yeah.
And he may have said, you know what, I don't want to be broken like those veterans.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward.
I do think, I said it yesterday, I think it is a national security issue of no one wants war, but let's be real, it's coming at some point. And if we're not taking care of our veterans doing that, the youngsters are. And requirements to how society is changing, less people are even eligible to serve.
Mm-hmm.
There's this great quote that I use as a nonprofit leader. And I don't know if you were there yesterday when I mentioned this. The willingness with which young people are likely to serve in future wars shall be directly proportional to how they perceive previous generations were treated and appreciated by their nation. So I look at the words treated and appreciated different than, this is the difference between sympathy and pity and understanding and empathy. Treated doesn't mean entitling us. Treated means empowering us after our service to realize our full potential again and transform ourselves as civilians. Everyone thinks treated means giving us benefits and serving us and helping us. Appreciated doesn't mean just being grateful for and saying thank you for your service. Appreciated means understanding. And if we understand the value of service, if we really want to empower people to achieve their full potential, we have to go beyond friendly. Friendly is disrespectful.
Mm.
Like, are you saying you're doing me a favor by giving me a job or letting me live in your community?
Yeah.
I account for $2.1 trillion in the economy as a consumer. I bring $1 trillion of revenue to this economy as a small business owner.
As veterans.
Veterans, small business owners, and our families. Like, let's stop accepting that as a community. So military thriving is on us. It's about how we want to change the narrative. And we decide who we work for. We decide who we give our time, talent, and treasure to. If it's a nonprofit that's talking about us in a way that we don't believe, and we decide where we live, work, and serve, and run our businesses.
Having the opportunity to reframe those conversations will be really instrumental on both sides to resolve that.
And that's what we built the company around, is advising companies large and small about how to take care of their people. It's kind of really simple.
Yeah.
So how do you integrate your recruiting, talent strategy, people strategy with a social impact strategy that gives veterans, military spouses, and all your employees purpose through service, connection, health, and filling their kit bags up? And we know every nonprofit in the military and veteran community, so we're more experts in that. And we're typically focused on veteran ERGs, but this applies to everyone because everyone needs the things that veterans need. We just over-index on a lot of these things because of our experience in the military. And then tying those two pillars, people, impact, to storytelling, and integrating the three things, because inside companies it's siloed. And then your veteran ERG, or all your ERGs, your employee resource groups, business resource groups, become your weapon system. They become your best recruiters and retainers. They become your best volunteers at the local level. They become your best storytellers. And what does that do? It lowers recruiting and retention cost. And it drives consumer behavior because you're no longer military friendly. You're beyond everyone else. They see you as excellent, extraordinary versus ordinary.
It's a brand awareness. It's exponentially, improving upon.
It is. And I love the military thriving and that mindset, and veterans get out there, do it, because we know so many veterans who are out there crushing. Yes, like we've had our struggles. We, pulled up by the bootstraps, used resources. Now let's go. There's so much out there, and I just want to see more of it. And it doesn't have to be at the big corporations. You can have your own small business, and you can do these things for veterans. And I mean, it's what I always say is that's what I think our country needs, and that's why we do what we do.
And we appreciate you doing it. I think we say all the time that everything in life happens for a reason.
You find good people to be around, and I think that's a common denominator with both of us. Surround yourself with good people, do good things, good stuff happens. And we've known each other online for years, but I think last year was the first time we met in person, and then now, going forward, and it's just doing good.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
What are your goals for the next 3 to 5 years with Zero Mills?
Since you're going to pivot because you can't sit still.
Yeah. Well, I think I can do both. Laura doesn't know I said that. No, I think I can. I think our goals for the next 3 to 5 years is just to model in a couple of companies, a couple of universities, a couple of communities what right looks like. Mm. And then military thriving is taking hold. You see people, you see organizations, even ones that are eliciting sympathy and pity using the word. And that's when I know something's taking hold. Mm-hmm. But I'm not looking to create this in every company. I'm not looking to create this in every community.
But if you have a program where you can support that, right?
Right. And I think that will happen over time. Someone will see it and they'll take Zero Mills on board and they'll help us scale it.
Yeah.
I was asked that question a lot because people really see the value in what we're doing.
It's applicable to all workforce,
Yeah.
not just military.
Well, and we should want that. Like,
Yeah.
here's the difference between a lot of the mindsets that have existed, the broken veteran narrative versus thriving, is we as a community should want people to recognize the challenges, but then to use the things that helped us get through those challenges: strength, resilience, connection. I mean, we have the strongest community in the world. If you just look across LinkedIn and other networks, we're very supportive of each other.
Yeah.
So I actually think that companies, if they understand that brings value across the enterprise, that they're more likely to invest in these strategies. I mean, that's what we say. This is an investment, and military thriving is a revenue generator, not a cost center. I think a lot of companies are looking at ways to reduce cost, and they have to see the value, and I completely agree with it.
Sure. They have to have an ROI at the end of the day to support the purchase that they make.
Employee wellness is a good example. Like, these ideas of meaningful employment, employers should pride themselves in giving their employees meaningful employment. But the other four things, if they see that as a cost, then they're not going to act on it. I think if you can show them that aligning these three pillars of people, impact, storytelling, empowering your employees to find those other four things, if you can prove it lowers recruiting and retention costs by millions of dollars,
absolutely,
and you can prove that consumers actually resonate with them, and your employees are actually helping you grow, then they'll invest in it. But you have to make the case. You can't just say it. You have you have to actually measure it.
Yeah, and you have to be able to communicate those metrics.
Yeah, and that's part of the work we do. So when Zero Mills connects a company in creating the impact strategy and giving the employee resource groups opportunities to serve with nonprofits, we actually measure every nonprofit to make the case that they should give more to one and less to another. One company we consulted on military thriving, we connected them with 8 nonprofits over a year, and it culminated in this virtual hiring event. They had 1,000 jobs they wanted to fill. The 8 nonprofits we created unique URLs for. This is in a month. We drove 520 through the relationships with the nonprofits. No paid media, they didn't pay $1. This was all Zero Mills doing the work, using the nonprofits that we had built relationships with. And they created this virtual platform where they had recruiters for the jobs they were looking for, the employee resource groups, and then veterans and military spouses who were already in the jobs. 520 people signed up. 320 actually showed. That's not uncommon.
That's actually high.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's
'cause
high
usually
for how many people.
half of those you invite are actually interested, and half of those will actually attend.
Yes.
So that's over that metric.
And it's because of the trust we have with the community.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows I founded Hiring Our Heroes. Everyone knows I ran 2 national nonprofits, and military thriving resonates with our community. When I speak publicly, our community is nodding their heads. So we were going to drive those people because of our brand. Of the 320 people, that company hired 40 people.
Wow.
Now, take this on board. It cost, on average, this is for a lower level hire, $7,500 per person. They saved $300,000 in cost without paying $1.
Yeah.
And we were being retained at a very modest level to build that corpus. Here's the key. Only 2 of the 8 nonprofits drove 95% of the people who registered, showed up, and almost 100% of the hires, 39 of the 40 hires. So we said to them, hey, you should invest in these 2 and not invest in the other 6. I told the nonprofit leaders that's what we were doing. So the nonprofits that drove that traffic intentionally worked to do that. The problem was the company didn't want to invest more money. They wanted to do that every quarter. And I said, well, you should give the nonprofits money. And we walked away from a Fortune 50 company.
Because they saved so much money with
and
that.
they should invest it. Yeah. Imagine doing that every quarter and you save $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing any
That's
marketing.
just greed if you're not willing to.
Right. They just wanted to put butts in seats. They weren't even
there.
military friendly. They just wanted to put butts in seats.
Yeah. That's just corporate greed. And good for you for walking away and standing on business.
Well, we owe that to our community. If we believe our own BS, and I believe my BS, I actually think that this is the most important thing and what my community needs.
Yeah.
And I think there are very few people. I think you're one of them too. I think Jason is one of them too, We were all together yesterday.
Yeah,
I think there's
Jason
people
Redman,
out there.
Yeah.
Jason Redman. I think there are people out there that really believe this,
Mhm.
and we need them to be part of it. I know what I'm good at, and I've done this, and I knew that this is what my community needed, and I have a responsibility
Yeah.
because of my challenges. Like I think a lot of people, I've been told by major nonprofits, VSOs, to be careful. Be careful not to say thriving too much because you may hurt the veteran who's challenged. And I literally looked him right in the eye and said, you just lit a fire that you do have no idea, because I'm not being careful.
Yeah.
And you're telling the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Because I know what it was like
Yeah.
to barely survive.
We've seen it so many nonprofits, depending on how they get their funding,
Yeah.
they're very protective of that. And they're like, oh, if this gets better, which is the end goal.
We call it
I may
the
not get my funding.
SPCA effect, where
Yeah.
it's like the poor pitiful puppy, the arms of the angels. It's eliciting sympathy. And the veterans shouldn't all be seen as the poor pitiful puppy.
That's exactly what my business partner, retired Colonel Paul Cucinato, says, the poor pitiful puppy.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't they showing the puppy after they get the treatment or
Yeah.
the services they need?
They don't show them thriving.
Right, jumping around through
Yeah.
hoops and running after a ball, because that's where they get to. So
That doesn't elicit funds.
no, exactly. And listen, the word nonprofit is a misnomer.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as a nonprofit. You have to run a profit.
Thank you for
Yeah.
saying that.
It's for purpose.
Yes.
It shouldn't.
But it's a business, and the point of business is it has to make some money,
Listen.
or you
And
can't.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, since we got on this soapbox, because it's one I want to get on. They should pay their employees if they have monetary funds to do so. The boards have approved these people to be paid. Then we should be looking at who gets paid what, just like we do in an organization,
in
which
any company.
which includes location, experience.
Exactly.
Are you also a contributing member of these sponsorships that
Just
are coming in?
got
There's a lot
Corey's
of
soapbox.
factors.
I mean, we could go on fire right now with this topic, because people need to do what they call due diligence.
Yes.
And what's happening in the space is there are nonprofits that are paying their senior people an extraordinary amount of money.
Yeah.
And companies don't even look at a 990. They're not
Yeah.
even researching what they're paying people and what measures matter and what impact they're making, and whether or not that growth of the business, the nonprofit, it is different. Like, we're accountable to our community as a nonprofit leader. Like, you're measured by a different standard, and you should be paid well.
Yeah,
But that should go across the organization.
absolutely.
Like,
I do
I've run
agree with that.
nonprofits, and it come to a point where they were paying me bonuses, and I got paid really well.
Mhm.
I get paid a lot less than I got paid at the nonprofits,
Yeah,
and I'm making a greater difference. That's my choice. I'm not.
Yeah.
So I think what needs to happen is we need to look at the entire space. There are for-profit companies that help veterans get jobs,
Mhm.
and there are nonprofits that help veterans get jobs. And the nonprofit CEO salaries are exorbitantly high compared to the for-profit CEOs and their employees. And the for-profits are completely for free too, to veterans and their spouses. So I never look at that term. I look at the people who are making an impact for our community. I want them all to do well,
Yeah.
but I think we need to hold the same standard. And I talked about this a bunch of times publicly now. And I think there's unfair access for nonprofits to governments. They use that access to give their funders access to. And listen, I know the work that we're doing is important, and I may not get a meeting because Zero Mills is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that has literally helped raise $60 million for 17 nonprofits since we started of new money. It's impacted hundreds of thousands of people, and we're getting people to work together instead of compete against each other.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I get a meeting in any government agency or testify before Congress about the work that we're doing that is equally, if not more important than all the ones that are listing sympathy and pity, and getting Congress and all these agencies to talk about our community the wrong way too?
Yeah.
Because the public sector has to message the right way about our community
Right.
too. And I see that change starting to happen, but there's a lot of duplicity in the word nonprofit itself. And I think we need
Just
to take a look
in
at it.
veteran nonprofit, what's over 50,000? I don't even know what the number is. It's over 50,000.
It's getting close. It's getting close to 50.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
so, and there's a lot of good ones, and there's a lot that are just out there, but to me, in some of them, you don't have to be at that big mega scale. You could do something small in your local community.
I like the advice that you give people when they reach out to you and say, thinking of starting a nonprofit, I want to know what words of wisdom you might have for me, basically. And he always starts with, what's your goal? You are very real with them and say, like, maybe just do some research and find the ones that are already in that space
Sure.
and talk to them about how you could be a part of theirs.
Yeah, like run a program for them. Or
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm working on is a 10-week curriculum for smaller nonprofits because, one, I can draw them in and have the same conversation that you're having and be really honest and open with them and say, hey, you might want to look at doing this with someone else because I know the entire space. And two, I really believe that there are a lot of the 40,000 or 45 or 50,000 are actually helping a lot of veterans at the local level or families, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not just the military and veteran space, that they're helping people from falling through the cracks because all hiring, all change, all impact, all growth happens at the local level. So I'm not of the school of disparaging small leaders because even a mom and dad that started a small nonprofit to honor their son or daughters, like, or an illness that they had or whatever, like that's the service project in a nutshell. So
Yeah.
I'm creating cohorts of small nonprofit leaders, and over a 10-week period, I'm teaching them through my own experiences how to grow their nonprofits. And they'll know at the end of that whether or not it was made for them, because it's not easy.
No.
It is not. It
We
is.
both have had nonprofits.
Yeah.
So you know. And it's probably, I mean, it's
And we
equal
both
to.
figured out we needed a for-profit.
So you can do well and do
Yeah.
good. Like, so I've had this experience through Presidential Leadership Scholars, and one of the classmates of mine is from India. He's oral surgeon, and he's running a nonprofit. Anyway, his wife has an apparel company. And he asked me about the cap one day, and I told him the story about why I wear a hat. This is why I wear these hats. I just feel more comfortable. It's like when your cap becomes your cape. So I tell him that. He's like, well, my wife has this apparel company. So no joke, she literally offered to design a version of this scally cap, and I'm going to call them Schmally caps. But here's the cool part. Schmelly cap. So I'm not taking myself too seriously, but really
It
cool
reminds
thing.
me of Schmelly
I feel
Cat.
like I'm on Shark Tank right now. I'm like,
Yeah, let's get on it. So the S and the C in the logo they created actually looks like a cape, like the form of a cape.
Yeah.
But for each cap that they make, the original one is going to have colorings, and it's going to have the story about the one I told you, the courage cap.
yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't wear a baseball cap to speak publicly, so I wear a scally cap. But each one will be designed in honor of someone I served with who's serving, and it's going to go to a vast majority of the proceeds are going to go to supporting a nonprofit. So it's
love
about
that.
the Bamba model. But a close friend of mine, Kevin Schmiegel, an Irishman who's larger than life, he was a rugby player at Air Force Academy, became a Marine, which is rare for the Air Force Academy, started the Marine Corps rugby team, in essence, larger than life, like this big Irishman. He went to Iraq and he was a major. At the time, he was the oldest active duty service member killed in Iraq, September 14th of 2004. It was on his 38th birthday, and he left behind a wife and two kids. So the idea behind it is on St. Paddy's Day or around March, because we were supposed to do it this year, but maybe it'll be next year, there'll be a green cap that'll be designed, and it'll be in honor of Kevin Schmiegel. And that money would go to a TAPS or Wear Blue Run to Remember. So it's honoring Kevin. It's telling his story in a very powerful way, because there's a story behind like our relationship, and he would have changed the world. Like, this guy was larger than life, like unbelievable. So I'm sharing that not because I want to sell caps. I'll give them away. I don't really care about that. It's about this idea that
We got to talk about the giving away part. We want it to make money so it can go
Yes.
to these
That's it.
nonprofits. And
I'll let you know when we
Yeah.
roll it out. I just think that we're at the point in our lives where we're just hitting our stride, and we have to think bigger in what we're doing. So I'm going to do this with Zero Mills over the next 3 to 5 years, but I have a big cup to fill, and I have a lot of things that I still want to accomplish. And the two biggest things are really looking across the space at these younger leaders who I can pass the torch to of service, and giving them the tools they need to grow like I did, because most of the things that I learned, they have in them. And it's identifying the right people to go through this together. And then they become a cohort and a collective, and they become the next Hiring Our Heroes or the next Operation Gratitude. And I think that's very achievable. And those will be the people that come to the memorial service and say, Kevin really helped me. And it's not about me helping them, because they helped me too in mentoring people and coaching them and getting them to do that. And then the last thing is just like meeting more people like you that we can work with together that are doing all these things too and shining a spotlight on what you're doing. Like, I think those are the things that we need to do as leaders, is how can we create these groups, these collectives who are like, we were on stage yesterday. We were on the stage together, and Jason Redman and Herb and I, we were saying the same things. We were just saying it a different way.
Yeah.
And there's this really powerful thing that's going on right now. We are saying exactly the same things. Like, I use national security imperative. So how do you take that together, right? And so there's these young leaders that through this service project that I can help groom. And then there's these other like people that are well beyond me, like you and Jason, who I can start to align with and message together and show up for one another. Like, and that means just commenting, hey, I see what you're saying, Herb, and I agree with that. I may say it a different way, but that's how we create change together.
Together. I do have one final question though.
Okay.
What do you value most in life?
Laura, I was going to say my kids again, but I found my soulmate, and it's an unusual thing where everything you do in life is with some other person, and you make each other better, and you want to be better for each other. And I think at this time in my life, having that is really important. I mean, it's important for her too, let's be honest. But recognizing what you can have and then finding it. And it also forces you to think, I'm never going to settle for anything again. If I'm traveling or she's traveling, when we wake up, we talk to each other. When we go to bed, we talk to each other. And when something good happens or bad happens, we talk to each other. And that's a marriage and a partnership.
Subscribe, like, and comment, and don't forget to set those notifications. We'll see you next week with another special guest.
Until then, own your journey.